people.
Franklin said. All right, so before I begin the video, I wanted to remind everybody this information, well, this book that we've gone over, something Benjamin Franklin said that we need to really pay attention to, right? So the book is called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, by Benjamin Franklin. All right, Benjamin Franklin wrote this, all right? This is from 1755, all right? And we're on page 10 of this book. And this is what Benjamin Franklin says, point 24, which he's making, observations, right, he's given. Which leads me to add one remark, he says, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. It's very small. You're the minority. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia chiefly tawny, all right, tawny, a darker complexion, right, not white. America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. All right, what is that saying? America is what? Black or tawny, wholly so, except the new people, the newcomers. All right, Benjamin Franklin, you know. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, Swedes are generally of what we call swarthy complexion. As are the Germans, so is the Germans. As are the Germans, so is the Germans. Just a quick reminder, we're here in the American Dictionary of the English language. All right. This is actually Webster's 1828 dictionary. All right, I got the official PDF. We're going to go all the way to the word swarthy. All right. And right here it says swart, right? Almost sounds like steward. Swart, steward, swart, steward. Now, where'd they get the steward? Did it mean black or dark? What is swart? It says being of dark hue. Moderately black, tawny, swarth. All right. Down here it says swart, to make tawny or brown. Swart, an apparition. Swartly. All right. Duskly with a tawny hue. It says swartness, tawniness, a dusky or dark complexion. Dark complexion. All right. Dark complexion. Swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion. Tawny. In warm climates, the complexion of man is universally what? Swarthy or what? Black in warm climates. Is there only warm climates in Africa? No, we have warm climates all over the world, right? The Moors, Spaniards, and Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. It says their swarthy hosts would darken all our plains. Swarthy, all right, black, as the swarthy African, it says, right? As the swarthy African. So the African is swarthy, right? Swarthy is a tawny color. Swartish, somewhat dark or tawny. Swarthy, tawny. All right. So you get the picture, right? Swarthy. So an African is swarthy, right? Black. As are the Germans, so is the Germans. As are the Germans, so is the Germans. The Negro Question, Part 4. The Missing Link by Lee Cummins. And he continues quoting Benjamin Franklin from this thing he wrote in 1751. And he says again, Benjamin Franklin, why should the Palatine Moors, Germans, be suffered to swarm into our settlements? He's like, why are these Moors, German Moors, coming over here? Why should we allow them to come over here? Now remember who was a so-called Palatine or German Moor? That was Abraham Lincoln's family. Through his father's side, they're black Germans. They were swarthy Germans. They were more Palatine Moors. All right, Abraham Lincoln. They will never adopt our customs any more than they can adopt our complexion, white skin. He says, all of Africa, Asia, and America except us are black. All right, America is what? Black. Russia, Italy, Spain, France, Swedes, and the Germans are black. The German tapestry, 1400 AD. All right, what this is showing these wild, pale-skinned people, wild, right? And they come in to invade this castle, which is filled with swarthy, dark-skinned, melanated people, all right, of dark complexion, all right, or so-called black Europeans in their castle. All right, you can look that up. All right, so I wanted to show you the actual tapestry zoomed in. All right, so like I was saying, I wasn't kidding. So it shows a bunch of pale-skinned people, right? Look like wild men. They got some kind of tattoos or whatever on, and they're trying to invade this castle right here. All right, so you see, these are melanated people. You see their complexion. Look at that. Look how they're dressed. Look at that bow and arrow. Bow and arrow. Who has bow and arrows? All right, so you see up here in the windows. All right, you see down here, so you can see. See up here in the windows, you see? Dark complexion people, right? Swarthy Germans. This is in Germany. They're getting their castle invaded. All right, and there's people on the other side behind them too. So you see, they're over here hiding. He's fighting. They're over here fighting, trying to get him off. All right, look at it coming. Look who's coming. All right, so this is real history. This is from 1400 AD. You can't ignore this. So what happened to all these swarthy, so-called black Europeans? What happened to them? They just disappeared? They ended up in Africa and stuff? No. A lot of them were sent over here during the times of indentured servitude, going through this middle passage, being called Black Irish, Black Scots, Black Dutch. All right? Hope you understand a little bit more now. A South German Tapestry. This is from the Bulletin of the Museum of Fine Arts, Volume 56, number 303, pages 5 to 13, plus 15 to 17, 12 pages. Again, Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. A South German Tapestry. It is indeed a matter for congratulation that the first German tapestry, right, the first German tapestry to be acquired for the museum should be an outstanding example of an important period in history of European tapestry weaving. The purchase of this tapestry, once a part of the Sigmaringen Hohenzollern collection, was made possible through a fund established by the bequest of Charles Potter Kling. Though precise dating of the tapestry from evidence now available is not possible, there are many reasons to believe that it was woven sometime during the last decade of the 14th century or the first decade of the 15th century, right? Historians know it's from that time period, okay? Might be even older. The subject of the tapestry, startlingly at variance with the subjects of other tapestries in the museum's collection, present an enticing iconographic puzzle. Beginning at the left-hand end of this long, narrow strip of tapestry, probably intended to hang above a row of benches, we follow the actions of strange bearded men, clothed in handsomely styled renderings of the traditional hairy covering of the mythological wild man. Armed with stones and branches, the wild men approach a moated castle defended by dusky Moors, dark complexion, so-called black Moors, dusky Moors. All right. So who is the wild man, and who is the ones in the castle? All right. Pay attention. From the upper windows of the castle, the king and queen watch the approaching horde. The attackers, in contrast to the dark-skinned defenders, all right, again, in contrast to the dark-skinned defenders, are giants. But though the danger seems overwhelming, the drawbridge is down and two bowmen advance toward the invaders. To the right beyond the castle, a wild man crowned with flowers struggles with a lion. Two wild men attack a winged dragon, while still farther to the right, another wild man grabs the horn and right leg of a spotted unicorn in an effort to subdue him. The small trees which punctuate these incidents have smooth, sinuous brown trunks. each species of tree indicated by the variations of the elaborate polychrome patterns of the tuft of leaves at the top. Birds flock to one tree to feed on its berries, and tailless brown apes climb the trunk and play in the branches of another. Beyond the apes, a wild man mounted on a stag rides proudly on. Two wild men bring offerings, spoils of the chase, to a wild woman, who with two children is seated on the foot of a stylized pyramidal hill. Subtly calculated irregularities in the angular rock formations of the hill, from which grow small trees and flowering plants, give variety to a composition which frames and focuses attention on the strange family scene. The head of the wild woman, her fair hair crowned with leaves, is a silhouette against the rosy shadows of the rocks. The foreground is patterned with small, varicolored mounds, each framing a stylized plant, while at intervals rabbits and other small animals are seen emerging from behind the little mounds. These wild people are outside the clearly defined boundaries of the medieval feudal hierarchy. Their rank and place in society is not shown by the style of their garments. They are clothes, if we may so describe the delicate pattern of which the forms of their bodies are delineated, and soft garments stripped gray, cream, pink, yellow, brown, and green, in a manner to suggest delicately dyed furs. The two wild men who approach the wild woman, one half kneeling as he offers an animal's leg to the woman, an animal's leg, the other slightly bent under the weight of a dead lion on his back. Merely by the angles of their bodies complete the frame and background for the woman with her children, continuing and supporting the rocky hill as the apex of the triangle. The Negro Question, Part 4, The Missing Link, by Lee Cummins. Back in the book, and it's the same image right here. Right, and he says, I had to slow cropping the image, the tapestry down so that we could retrieve the secrets that are hidden on it. As you can see, the black German soldiers are protecting the black German king, queen, and prince who are looking out of the castle. I have slowed the tapestry down even further on the next page. It says iron arrowhead, iron lookout perches, and bronze horn. All right. Professor Boyd Dawkins, page 6 of this book, The Little Black Basque, brought the knowledge of iron and bronze with them. Look closely at the tip of the arrowhead. It's made of iron. Do a double take and look at the lookout perches. They are made of iron, and the horn appears to be made of bronze. Professor Boyd Dawkins was describing a highly technological black civilization in Europe, not Africa. Again, not Africa. This is Wild Men in the Middle Ages, a study in art, sentiment, and demonology, by Richard Bernheimer, Harvard University Press. And real quick, I go to chapter 1, The Natural History of the Wild Man, just to read a little bit about this. It says here, instead, this book deals with literary and artistic figure whose imaginary character is proved by its appearance. It is a hairy man, curiously compounded of human and animal traits, without, however, sinking to the level of an ape. It exhibits upon its naked human anatomy a growth of fur, leaving bare only its face, feet, and hands, at times its knees and elbows, or the breast of the female of the species. Frequently the creature is shown wielding a heavy club or mace, or the trunk of a tree, and since its body is usually naked except for a shaggy covering, it may hide its nudity under a strand of twisted foliage worn around the loins. Where any characteristics other than these appear, there is a possibility that instead of a wild man, we may be beholding another imaginary figure such as a devil, faun, or satyr. The creature itself may appear without its fur, its club, or its loin ornaments. Any one of its characteristics may be said to designate the species. This strange relative of Homo sapiens, a lively and sometimes pungent commentary on the bestial side of his nature, plays an astoundingly persistent, although on the whole subordinate part in the art and literature of the Middle Ages. But even though the frequency of the wild man's appearance in art and letters is not quite matched by the importance accorded to him in medieval thinking,
His ubiquity must be regarded as a sign that he represented a major, if unacknowledged, trend of thought. All right, everybody was talking about this wild man. So is it really myth? His presence is like the running commentary with which a man's half conscious imaginary accompanies his conscious ideals and aspirations, a reminder that there are basic and primitive impulses clamoring for satisfaction. Medieval literature and art are shot through with the mythology of the wild man. We find him in the clipped verses of French Arthurian romance, in the epics of German minstrel singers, and in the writings of Cervantes and Spenser. The whole vast field of late medieval secular art is his playground, from prints and paintings by Albrecht Dürer and Peter Bruegel to the love caskets and tapestries which medieval swains presented to their ladies, or the tools of chivalry, such as saddles and ornament weapons. His place in medieval daily life was assured by the appearance of his image on stove tiles, candlesticks, and drinking cups, and on a larger scale on house signs, chimneys, and the projecting beams of frame houses. His figures even invaded religious buildings, and in liturgical books, being found on the borders of illuminated manuscripts, on capitals, choir stalls, baptismal fonts, tomb plates, and as a gargoyle on the eaves of churches. All right, so you see where they found all this. So you see how the wild man is portrayed in all this history, right? And all this art and all these buildings. Is it more than just myth? Once on the facade of a Spanish church, it observed the place which should have been given to the saints, standing full size on the jambs of its main portal. So great then was the ubiquity of the wild man in medieval life, and so wide his acceptance in art, that the question arises what function, individual and social, a figure such as this could have exerted, and what needs it could have satisfied within the framework of medieval civilization. Right, so I wanted to go to page 147, is where they mention the tapestry we're talking about today. And it says here, there are in one tapestry only hairy wild men assailing blackamoors, including a black king and queen, including a black king and a black queen. And I'm going to read from this one real quick. This book is called The Wild Man, Medieval Myth and Symbolism, Timothy Husband, with the assistance of Gloria Gilmore House. A couple of the images here in this book, very interesting. It says here, Wild Man, pen and ink illustration from Ballade de une homme sauvage, France. This is from around 1500. In the introduction of the book, it says here, thought to live in remote, mountainous, and forested regions, the wild man especially flourished in the wooded or alpine regions of the German-speaking lands, right? German, right where the tapestry was made, right? Showing these wild men in Germany trying to invade this black king and queen, such as the Harz, Fichtel, and Algo Mountains of Germany. That's where the legends have them, in these mountains of Germany. The Alpine regions of Carinthia and the Tyrol in Austria, and Graubünden and Wallis in Switzerland. In many such areas, the myths have survived to this day, still celebrated in festivals, masquerades, and dramas. Not limited to these regions, however, the wild man myth thrived throughout Western and Central Europe. In these forests, the wild man was said to make his home in caves, rocky crags, dank burrows, hollows in tree trunks, and other rude places. Occasionally, he fashioned primitive hovels of branches and mud, and 11th century Hessian documents refers to such an abode as a Wilderow Wibu Hus, wild woman house. Toward the end of the 14th century, Heinrich von Hessler states in Die Apocalypse that the wild man lived only in places unfit for human habitation, in fens and woods, in water and in mountains, in caves and in bushes. All right, and it has all these other languages. Notions of the wild man habitat had changed little by the end of the 16th century, as Edmund Spenser's description, The Fairy Queen, indicates. Just want to go over this image right here before we continue. It says, Wild Man, detail of a manuscript illumination from the Luttrell Psalter, England, from 1335 to 1340, London, the British Library manuscript. All right, this is a photocopy from the 1300s, right? This is all over there. Art. How much of a myth is it? By every account, the wild man's behavior matched his primitive surroundings, strong enough to uproot trees. He was violent and aggressive, not only against wild animals, but also against his own kind. What does that sound like? His brutish, contentious nature expressed itself in a natural combativeness against which neither beast nor man was equal, though his club, and sometimes only his bare hands, was his only weapon. With his instinctive knowledge of the ways of wild beast, the wild man was skilled hunter, but in spite of his physical supremacy, shrank from contact with humans and frequently even with his own kind. Indeed, his inept social abilities apparently limited him to only that cooperative union required for procreation. Like in agriculture, he was forced to eke out a subsistence from hunting and gathering. Though taught to crawl around on all fours, he scratched tubers and roots from the ground, picked berries and gnawed on verdure. When he killed game, he ate it completely raw. According to Chatrien de Troyes and Vain, by many accounts, the wild man also indulged in cannibalism. By the 16th century, this habit brought him into association with werewolves and other flesh eaters. Wild men were commonly thought to abduct children, but often only to fulfill parental instincts. Instances of wild folk substituting changelings for human children are also recorded. Although he was a hunter, the wild man was frequently hunted. Illustrations of the 14th century depict the wild man on all fours at bay, pursued by hounds and hunters on horseback. Incapable of speech, the wild man muttered only unintelligible sounds or none at all. I want to show some more images here. It says the wild man at bay, detail of manuscripts, illumination from Psalter of Queen of Mary, England, 1300 to 1325. All right, look at that. The wild man, all hairy, dogs going after him. It says here, wild man playing a Rebek Orpheus, wooden bread mold, Switzerland, 16th century. Okay, check it out. Shows Nebuchadnezzar cast out among the beast. Nebuchadnezzar, the wild man. Detail of manuscript illumination from the Bible of San Pedro de Roda, about 1000 AD. Look at that, Paris, the wild man. And another one with Nebuchadnezzar cast out. Goes the wild man right here. And I just want to show some in color that they have in this book. Pretty cool images. We got dragons. We got the people with the face chest people, the chest face people, right? Big ear people, and then we got the hairy wild man, all different types of humanoids, all right? Addressing these myths of Middle Ages. Here's another wild man drawing depiction, all right? And you see the wild man got the boars he brought with him to help him fight. It says Alexander in combat with wild men and beasts. Okay, Alexander. And of course, this is the one we're talking about today. This is the German tapestry, right? Showing the black king and queen with their people fighting off the wild man, the pale-skinned wild man. All right. It says here, wild men storming the Moor's castle. Wild men storming who? The Moor's castle. Wild men storming the Moors. So-called Negro people in Germany, right? In a castle. And they're the wild men. This is the other part again of the tapestry we've already talked about. One of them is fighting the lion. The other one's fighting the dragon. And another one's fighting the unicorn. Again, to me, the unicorn and the dragon are the same. Lion, these are all the lineages, the Khans. Come on, the Drakons, the Amarus, and the Judas. What's going on? A wild woman. Look at this wild woman. She's pale skinned. Wild woman with a unicorn. The wild woman with the dragon. And these are all like wild people. Hairy man right here. Two wild men and two pairs of lovers. And then look at this wood carving. Hairy man. A wild man, it says. Some more paintings right here. The wild man. And look at this one right here. The wild man. Who's the wild man? The wild man. Look at this. On top of a castle, the wild man. And then they depicted King Kong. And more wild men and wild women with a coat of arms. Wild couple supporting the arms of the Grafschaft Kaiberg. Wild men. And wild men on top of the castle. On the wild men storming the Moor's castle and other scenes. Germany, Alsace, Strasbourg. About 1400, all right, around 1400. Where is it located again? Boston Museum of Fine Arts. From left to right, 5 tall wild men covered with striped woolly body hair and armed with stone sticks, clubs, and fronts attack a castle peopled with small Moors. 2 black defenders in long mantles, one on the near side of the moat and the other on the drawbridge, draw their bows against the aggressors. The Moorish king and queen, both crowned, watch the foray from 2 windows over the castle gate. 4 Moors, one in each turret, brandish weapons or gesticulate, while 4 others watch from the crenellated wall below. The castle stands in a sparse wooded grove. Emerging from the edge of the grove is a stag. In the central section, several wild men with garlands in their hair engage in struggles with various animals. 1 wild man grapples with a rampant lion, raising his club to deliver a blow. 2 other wild men, one with a long pole and another with a club, attempt to kill a basset-like creature, while a 4th engages a unicorn holding its horn in one hand and foreleg in the other. In the right-hand section, a wild woman and 2 children, one seated on her lap and the other at her side, sit in front of the rocky outcropping. The group is approached from both sides by 3 wild men, one on a stag, another with a lion slung over his shoulder, and the third kneeling before her, offering a leg of meat. At the left, The Negro Question, Part 4, The Missing Link, by Lee Cummins. Says the tapestry shows that the whites lived in tree houses and caves. They were basically poor, while the technology and wealth was in the hands of the blacks. If I was focused on race, I would have missed the true treasure that this tapestry possessed. The real treasure on this tapestry is the technology and the civilization of the black German population. We cannot allow ourselves to fall into the pit of hate because of what the New World Order has done in history. We have an obligation, all colors of people, to seek the truth and to teach the truth, no matter how hard it is to swallow. All right, he makes a point there.
We have an obligation, all colors of people, to seek the truth and to teach the truth, no matter how hard it is to swallow. All right, he makes a